Despicable creatures like you belong in cells, not courthouses. Those words would torment Officer Delgado for the rest of his life. Judge Amara Johnson approached the courthouse in plain clothes, her briefcase packed with case files for the day's hearings. Just another street thug trying to slip inside. Delgado blocked her path, his face contorted with scorn. His open hand struck her cheek so forcefully that her head snapped to the side. Her expensive briefcase slipped from her grasp, legal documents scattering like petals across the courthouse steps. Delgado grabbed her by the throat, slamming her against the stone wall. Despicable creatures like you belong in cells, not courthouses. He twisted her arms behind her, metal cuffs digging into her wrists. Nearby officers gathered, laughing and recording on their phones. Amara's jaw throbbed, but her eyes stayed fixed on the bronze plaque above the entrance. The Honorable Judge Johnson presiding. 20 feet from her own courtroom, she was being brutalized by the system she served. Has karma ever hit this hard? Inside the courthouse, Delgado adjusted his uniform and cleared his throat. He knew this routine well. Spin the story, control the narrative, make himself the hero. The system always backed officers over those they branded criminals, especially someone who looked like her. Your Honor, Delgado began, his voice steady and rehearsed. I was conducting routine security checks when I encountered a suspicious individual attempting to breach courthouse security. He gestured toward Amara, now handcuffed at the defendant's table, a bruise blooming on her cheek. The individual was erratic, refused to provide identification, and became hostile when asked to comply with protocol. The temporary judge, Judge Peterson, a gaunt man in his 60s, nodded approvingly. What did you observe, Officer Delgado? Well, sir, she was dressed inappropriately for court, carrying what appeared to be stolen legal documents. Delgado's eyes gleamed as he leaned into his lie. When I approached, she turned verbally abusive, using profanity and making threats. From the gallery, Officers Sanchez and Rivera exchanged knowing glances. They'd heard Delgado weave similar tales countless times, different faces, same script. She kept ranting about being someone important. Delgado continued, his voice dripping with disdain. These types always claim they're lawyers, judges, or senators to evade accountability. I've seen this ploy before, Your Honor. Judge Peterson leaned forward, engaged. Did she try to flee or resist? Absolutely. She became physically aggressive when I tried to detain her for public safety. I used only the necessary force to subdue her. Delgado's hand trembled slightly, the only crack in his polished performance. The stenographer's fingers raced across her machine, capturing every falsehood. In the back row, a young law clerk frowned, a memory stirring. Officer Sanchez, the prosecutor called. Can you confirm Officer Delgado's account? Sanchez stood, his uniform pristine. Yes, ma'am. I witnessed the entire incident. The defendant was clearly trying to bypass security. Officer Delgado handled it with utmost professionalism. And the alleged assault? Judge Peterson pressed. Delgado's jaw tightened. Your Honor, I used minimal force to restrain an aggressive individual threatening courthouse safety. Any injuries she sustained were due to her resistance to lawful orders. He pulled out his phone, swiping to a video that conveniently began mid-incident. I have partial footage here, though my body cam malfunctioned this morning. The lie flowed smoothly. How convenient, Amara murmured, her first words in the courtroom. I'm sorry. Judge Peterson raised an eyebrow. Nothing, Your Honor. she replied, her voice calm but her eyes blazing with controlled fury. Delgado pressed on. This is a textbook case of someone playing the victim after being caught breaking the law. She was trespassing on government property with suspicious documents and cried discrimination when confronted. The prosecutor, Linda Hayes, a middle-aged woman, nodded sympathetically. Officer Delgado, in your 15 years of service, have you seen similar incidents? Unfortunately, yes. There's a pattern. Certain individuals think they're above the law and use racism accusations to dodge their crimes. Delgado's voice rose with feigned outrage. It's an insult to real victims of discrimination. Several in the gallery, mostly white courthouse staff, nodded, familiar with the narrative from news and social media. It felt safe, expected. The defendant claims she was heading to work, Delgado said, making mocking air quotes. But she couldn't provide employment verification, ID, or any legitimate reason for being in a restricted courthouse area. Officer Rivera stepped forward. If I may, Your Honor, the defendant was carrying what looked like confidential legal documents. We suspect she was involved in identity theft or fraud. Judge Peterson raised an eyebrow. Fraud? Yes, sir, Delgado interjected, sensing momentum. Those documents had judicial letterhead, case numbers, and sensitive information. No ordinary citizen would have access to such materials. We believe she was planning to impersonate court personnel. The irony was thick, but Delgado, caught in his performance, didn't notice the trap he was setting. In my professional opinion, he concluded, this is just another attempt to manipulate the system. She knows claiming police brutality or racism distracts from her crimes. He turned to Amara, his eyes cold. These people think they can stroll into any courtroom, any building, and when stopped, they scream discrimination. Not in my courthouse. The words hung heavily. Some court staff shifted uncomfortably. Others remained impassive. Your Honor, Prosecutor Hayes added, the state recommends charges of trespassing, resisting arrest, and assault on an officer. The defendant's attempt to frame this as a civil rights issue is a desperate tactic. Delgado allowed himself a small smirk. Everything was unfolding as planned. Another case, another victory, another lesson that the system kept people in their place. Furthermore, he continued, emboldened, I showed remarkable restraint. The defendant was clearly unstable, possibly on drugs. A lesser officer might have used far more force. Judge Peterson nodded gravely. Your professionalism is noted, Officer Delgado. At the defendant's table, Amara sat motionless, hands clasped despite the cuffs. Her face was calm, almost serene, but a faint smile hinted at the storm she was preparing to unleash. She was cataloging every lie, every fabrication, every detail that would soon dismantle Delgado's career. He had no idea he was testifying before the one person who could ruin him. Is there anything else, officer? Judge Peterson asked. Delgado squared his shoulders. Just that incidents like this remind us why we need strong law enforcement. Some people only respect authority when it's enforced. He had no clue how prophetic those words would be. The stake rests its case, Prosecutor Hayes said confidently. The evidence shows a clear pattern of criminal behavior and resistance to authority. As Delgado stepped down, he caught Amara's eye and winked, a gesture of total dominance. It would be his last moment of triumph. The defendant may now present her statement, Judge Peterson announced, his tone suggesting a formality before sentencing. Amara rose slowly, the cuffs clinking softly. Despite the bruise and disheveled clothes, She exuded undeniable dignity, making several in the courtroom shift uneasily. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and authoritative, filling the room. "I appreciate the chance to address these accusations." Judge Peterson blinked, caught off guard by her professional tone. "First, I'd like to correct several inaccuracies in Officer Delgado's testimony." Her gaze swept the room, lingering on those who had endorsed his lies. "He claimed I was trespassing on government property, but I was on a public sidewalk approaching the courthouse entrance at approximately 8:47 a.m. She turned to Judge Peterson. "Your Honor, you're familiar with HGVV, Committee for Industrial Organization, which establishes public sidewalks near government buildings as public forums where citizens have a constitutional right to be." The stenographer's fingers froze briefly. The prosecutor frowned. This wasn't the emotional outburst they'd expected. "Furthermore," Amara continued, "Officer Delgado claimed I carried suspicious documents suggesting identity theft. Let's examine that." She nodded toward the evidence table, where her scattered papers lay. "Those are authentic legal materials, case files, judicial memoranda, and correspondence, all of which I have legitimate access to in my professional capacity." "Professional capacity?" Judge Peterson interrupted. "What is your profession, miss?" Amara paused, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Johnson, Dr. Johnson. We'll get to my background soon, Your Honor." Delgado felt a chill. Something was terribly wrong. "Your Honor, if I may," Amara continued, her voice now that of a seasoned courtroom veteran. "Officer Delgado claimed I was verbally aggressive and used profanity. One, invoke my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent on any statements I may have made. But I note that any words I spoke were in response to an unprovoked physical assault without legal justification." The young law clerk in the back sat up, recognition dawning. Regarding the officer's claim of a body cam malfunction, Amara said, her tone sharpening, "I'm sure you're aware of Federal Rule of Evidence 106, allowing summaries of voluminous records. I believe comprehensive video and audio evidence of this incident exists and will be made available." Judge Peterson leaned forward. "What evidence?" "This courthouse has high-definition security cameras every 15 feet along the main approach. Additionally, the county maintains automatic backups of all officer body cam footage, regardless of claimed malfunctions." Delgado paled. He'd forgotten about the security cameras in his haste to control the narrative. "I request a preservation order for all surveillance data from 8:45 to 9:05 am, including courthouse footage, body cam backups, and any officer phone recordings," Amara said. Prosecutor Hayes stood. "Objection, Your Honor. The defendant can't make evidentiary demands without counsel." Amara turned to her, her gaze making Hayes step back. "Your Honor, pro se defendants have a Sixth Amendment right to present evidence, and Brady v. Maryland obligates the prosecution to preserve exculpatory evidence." The courtroom fell silent. This wasn't how these cases usually went. Judge Peterson cleared his throat. "Miss Johnson, you seem well versed in legal procedure. Do you have formal training?" "I have some experience with the judicial system," Amara replied neutrally, her eyes glinting with amusement. She gestured to the evidence table. "I'd also like to address Officer Delgado's claim that my presence was suspicious. This is my court calendar, showing I was scheduled to appear here for legitimate business at 9:00 a.m. The bailiff, Carter, a 12-year courthouse veteran, froze, recognition dawning with horror. Officer Delgado said I claimed to be someone important. Amara continued. I never made such a claim, but I did try to show him my ID, which he refused to look at before assaulting me. She paused, scanning the room. Your Honor, despite Officer Delgado's interference, I have documentation proving my identity and my right to be here. Judge Peterson looked uneasy. What documentation? Moving slowly, Amara reached into her jacket. My judicial parking pass, my building access card with my chamber's entry code, and my official ID. Bailiff Carter stood, pale, recognizing the woman he'd seen daily for 3 years. Your Honor, Amara said softly, there's been a significant misunderstanding about who Officer Delgado assaulted today. She held up a leather credential wallet, the gold judicial seal gleaming. Perhaps we should recess to verify identifications, she suggested, her tone that of someone accustomed to commanding courtrooms. Court will recess for 15 minutes, Judge Peterson croaked. As the gavel fell, Delgado felt his world unraveling. During the recess, the courthouse hummed with tension. In a holding room, Amara sat calmly as Carter fumbled with his keys, his hands trembling. Judge Johnson, he whispered, horrified. I didn't recognize you in civilian clothes. I'm so sorry. It's all right, Carter, Amara said gently. You weren't involved, but I need you to do something. Anything, Your Honor. Go to my chambers and bring my judicial robes, the black ones with gold trim, and my engraved gavel from my swearing-in. Carter hurried out, leaving Amara to center herself as she had for 23 years on the bench. This morning she was Judge Amara Johnson, a guardian of justice. In minutes, she'd been reduced to a handcuffed defendant facing fabricated charges. Now, it was time to reclaim her authority. Her returned phone buzzed with messages from her clerk, Sarah Thompson. Judge Johnson, where are you? The Reynolds hearing is soon. Attorneys are asking about delays. Amara replied, reschedule Reynolds. Clear my afternoon. Something bigger has come up. She called Chief Judge Elizabeth Morgan. Elizabeth, it's Amara. Amara, thank God. Are you okay? I've been better. I need you to secure all surveillance footage from 8:45 to 9:15 a.m. All cameras, multiple copies. What happened? Officer Delgado testified for an hour about subduing a dangerous criminal me. He assaulted me, called me a despicable creature, and said I belonged in a cell. Silence stretched. Jesus, Amara, FBI. Attorney General? Not yet. Secure the footage and pull every case Delgado has testified in over the past 5 years. Carter returned with her robes and gavel. Amara donned the black robes, their weight restoring her authority. She lifted her ceremonial gavel, engraved with justice is blind, but she sees all. Carter, when we return, announce me properly. Yes, Your Honor. How? The Honorable Judge Amara Johnson presiding. In the mirror, the bruise on her cheek was now a badge of the system's failure and her resolve to restore it. All rise. Carter's voice thundered. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Amara Johnson presiding. The words struck like lightning. Delgado, leaning against the prosecutor's table, froze. Judge Peterson, in Amara's chair, paled. Hayes's jaw dropped. Amara entered through the judge's door, robes gleaming, gavel in hand. She took her place behind the bench, her bench, and sat deliberately. Her gaze swept the stunned courtroom. Officer Delgado, she said softly, you may remain standing. Delgado looked ill, his face cycling through colors. "Your Honor," Peterson stammered. "Thank you for covering my courtroom," Amara interrupted kindly. "I'll take it from here." Peterson fled, robes billowing. "Officer Delgado," Amara continued, "2 hours ago, you testified under oath. Do you recall your statements?" Delgado couldn't speak. "You said, these people always claim to be lawyers, judges, senators to avoid accountability. You called me an entitled activist looking for a payday. And you said, actions have consequences." The room was silent. The air conditionings hummed deafening. "You also said people like me need to learn our place." She pulled out a tablet. "Let's review evidence that's come to my attention." She turned the screen, showing clear security footage of the incident. The courtroom watched Delgado block Amara's path, heard him sneer, "Just another street thug trying to slip inside," and saw the brutal slap, the chokehold, the cuffs. Gasps echoed as his words filled the room. "Despicable creatures like you belong in cells, not courthouses." Amara paused the video. "Do you see any verbal aggression from the defendant here? Any profanity? Any threats?" Delgado was silent, his career collapsing. "Now, about your body cam malfunction," she said, swiping to new footage. "This is your body cam's backup, uploaded to the county's cloud every 60 seconds, a system you overlooked." The unedited video played. "Look at this uppity one thinking she can waltz into my courthouse. Time to teach her a lesson." Hayes scrambled to gather her papers, distancing herself from the disaster. "Officers Sanchez and Rivera," Amara called. "You testified Delgado acted professionally." "Care to revise that?" Both officers inched toward the exit. Amara advanced the video, showing Delgado's assault from his own body cam. "Here, we see you commit felony assault against a federal judge." Delgado grabbed the table to stay upright. "And here's audio from Officer Rivera's body cam." Rivera's voice played. "Dude's going off on this one. Think she's actually important?" Sanchez replied, "Nah, just another scam artist." The gallery stared at Delgado with disgust. "You asked if I had employment verification," Amara said. "Well, I do." She gestured to the judicial seal, her nameplate, and her portrait in the lobby. "I've been this courthouse's presiding judge for 23 years. Every case you've testified in, every warrant you've requested, was under my authority." Delgado whispered, "Your Honor, I didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't look," Amara said. "You saw a black woman and assumed she was powerless." She leaned forward. "But there's more you didn't know. For 6 months, I've been investigating racial bias in your department with the FBI's Civil Rights Division. You've been under surveillance, and today you handed us perfect evidence." She raised her gavel. "Court will recess while I consider charges." Delgado collapsed into a chair as the gavel struck. 20 minutes later, the courtroom was packed with lawyers, clerks, and reporters drawn by the historic reversal. Delgado sat, defeated, beside his frantic public defender, James Larson. Amara returned, her robes a symbol of unyielding justice. "Officer Delgado," she began, "before we proceed with your charges, this court deserves to know who you assaulted." She addressed the gallery. "I am Judge Amara Johnson, presiding judge for 23 years, appointed by Governor Thompson in 2001, confirmed unanimously by the state Senate. I graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Law School, served as a federal prosecutor in the Civil Rights Division, and prosecuted 47 cases of police misconduct. Delgado's attorney scribbled furiously. In my 23 years on this bench, I've overseen over 15,000 cases, Amara continued. But never have I seen such a blatant example of what's wrong with American policing. She opened a file. Your record shows 43 cases in my courtroom over 5 years, 28 involving people of color, 26 where you were the arresting officer using the same language you used on me. Erratic, aggressive, threatening. She closed the file. For 6 months, I've worked with the FBI and DOJ on your department's misconduct. Your name is on a federal watch list. Today, you provided undeniable evidence of civil rights violations. She raised her gavel. You assaulted a federal judge, motivated by racial animus, as your own words prove. You committed perjury by lying under oath. The gavel hovered. My place, Officer Delgado, is ensuring justice, holding abusers like you accountable. The gavel fell. You are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without parole. I'm ordering a federal investigation into all your cases and complaints. The courtroom erupted in applause. 6 months later, Delgado's downfall reshaped the justice system. He served his sentence in protective custody, stripped of his badge and pension. The investigation uncovered departmental corruption. 12 officers fired, 4 supervisors charged, and the department under federal oversight. Chief Judge Morgan mandated reviews of misconduct cases involving judicial personnel. Body cams became mandatory, with fail-safe backups. Delgado's 432 tainted cases were reopened, freeing dozens and compensating victims with $8.7 million from the police budget. Judge Johnson became a national symbol of integrity, speaking at law schools and inspiring reforms. The courthouse was renamed the Justice Johnson Federal Courthouse, a plaque marking the day justice spoke. Community oversight boards were formed, and training programs were overhauled with Amara's input. The young law clerk, inspired, joined the ACLU. Sanchez and Rivera faced federal charges, their laughter now a case study in corruption. Amara's verdict video went viral, viewed over 50 million times, resonating with those who'd faced similar injustices. Delgado sits in his cell, haunted by the moment he assaulted a woman he thought powerless. He was wrong. Justice doesn't just wear a blindfold, it wears robes, carries a gavel, and, when the time comes, strikes back. Share this story if you believe in justice for all. Like it if you want more tales of courage over corruption. Subscribe stories like this unfold daily, and yours could be next. Truth always finds its voice.